Thinking about self-publishing and don't know where to start? Join the Spa Girls each week for 30 minutes of honest advice, tips and resources. I'm Trudy J and I am here with Shah Barrett.
Hi there.
Wendy Valla.
Hello.
And Cheryl Phipps.
Hi.
Hello. It's us alone by ourselves this week.
Alone by ourselves.
Alone by ourselves. No
That
guests.
doesn't make sense, eh?
Well,
We're together.
We're together by ourselves. Is that what I mean? I don't know.
We're all in our separate homes.
Together by ourselves sounds like it should be some kind of like movie title, eh?
Together by ourselves.
Oh, but no, never mind.
We're all in completely separate parts of the country too. That's quite funny.
Mm.
Anywho, back to the topic at hand. So this week we thought we would do a topic around, sorry, I just had to check what it was that we were actually talking about. How do I decide what to write next?
Yeah.
And it's a question we've all sat around worrying or angsting or just thinking in general, if you're not a worrier or an angster, and trying to decide where to go next in your career. I guess it's actually kind of like sometimes it's a decision around that or what.
I think it can be really tough if you have been writing for a while and it's not working, and you're like, I'm writing what I love, but it's not working. So what's the next step?
The pressure comes on, doesn't it? You start to sort of worry and things. So that kind of actually ties into our very first question that we kind of, so when we're talking to someone who says, oh no, I don't know what to write next, what's happening, how does it go, the very first question we think you should be asking yourself or the person you're talking to is, why are you asking that question? Like, there's obviously, why are you experiencing the confusion? Like, what is it that
where does it come from?
Where is it coming from? Are there stories that you're telling yourself? Are there two conflicting desires that you have, like two things that you're trying to do? What's the confusion? Why is that? So do you guys have any experience in that, like where you've kind of experienced that confusion?
Absolutely. I know I have, when my romances weren't doing as well as I had hoped, and it was, like I had a couple of series that had a couple of books in, and should I finish those series or should I try something new? And it's a very, very big step to take. It's a little bit scary, but if you're not getting what you want out of something, then sometimes you have to take a different direction. And be a little bit brave, or just put it out there just to chance it, just to see what will happen.
Because you were very brave, weren't you, Cher, when you just did a complete U-turn, didn't you?
I think so. I think like my gut was telling me that what I was doing wasn't, I want to say good enough, and I know you'll slap me down for that, but for what I wanted to achieve, which was financial independence, it wasn't enough. It wasn't good enough. So, and I couldn't figure out how to be better at that. So, it was just a natural progression.
Did you feel
one I don't regret.
Did you feel a lot of confusion? Like, how did you feel before you made the decision to actually go ahead with the Cozy Mysteries? Like, when you were still in that phase where you were trying to decide what to do next, or how you were going to deal with this issue?
We talked a lot though, didn't we, Cher?
We talked a lot about it, and that really helped, because Shah's pretty positive about that sort of thing. And I think having somebody, well, you all are, but like having somebody say to you, why don't you try this? And it was just, it was like a curtains opening, okay, here is another option. And it's not, like, it wasn't at the stage where, oh my gosh, I have to stick with what I'm doing because I won't have enough food in the house or something. It was never like that for me. It was just like, this is what I want. How can I achieve it? And it was trying something different is, it's just another chance. It's just another choice. And so you have to go down that road.
It's finding what fits you, right?
Yeah. Or maybe you want to stay where you are and you can't imagine writing any other thing, but maybe you need to tweak something. Maybe you need to do some more courses or learn your craft better or something like that. But there are options.
It takes a lot of bravery though to make that decision, right? Like, if you're gonna if what you're writing next is going to be something in a completely different genre, and you've got, you had a certain number of books in romance, like
probably
that was
about 18.
There's that whole, what's it called, Shah,
cost fallacy, but it's not even like it is, it's the title of it, but it's just all that emotional, mental, physical energy that's been put into those 18 books. That's really hard to say, not that you're writing them off on the balance sheet, but just that you're taking your attention away from those. It's kind of like turning on to a new focus point, and that's really, really difficult.
And
mine go share.
I was going to say that now that I'm so many books into this new pen name, now the choice is obvious. What do I write? Because I write the next book that is actually going to further my career or be better for me financially. That doesn't mean to say that I've thrown away my romance pen name. It just means that it doesn't get as much love because that's my decision, financially.
And you never regretted that choice,
decision.
did you?
No,
that is actually a really good fit for you, isn't it? Cozy mystery and your writing style.
Yeah.
So maybe we could talk about why it was a good fit, because I think that helps with the decision-making process, in terms of, we're talking about, like, if you like, a 45-degree shift of genre. And there's a lot of commonality, a lot of similarities between romance, weirdly, and cozy mysteries, particularly because it's relationships that are at the core, and the community aspects. There's a lot of crossover, and often with romance you're setting as a fantasy type setting, not fantasy as in the genre, but like you're setting the stage, and the same with cozy mysteries. Yes, it's a different focus in terms of the relationships, but it's still got that community and that people underneath it. So it's not a massive, it's a gear change, I would say, rather than a complete kind of.
I agree. I absolutely agree. I'm still writing small town, and most of my romance is a small town. I'm still writing family hugely, and there is a little bit of romance creeping into my cozy mysteries because my readers have asked for it. But
it's a mental shift for you, isn't it? Too, like, because you never want to think of it as a failure, because it's not. It just wasn't working at that time. So I think it's a mental thing. You've gone, okay, I'm shifting here, and that's working for me now. It's not. It's just a shift, is what I'm trying to get at. It's not a failure in any way. And I think that's something, it's like we always say it's an apprenticeship, right? Writing is an apprenticeship until you get it right. And so, you're trying different things that fit you until you find the one that does. And that's what you've done, Cher.
And it's about looking at the information you're getting in as data, like not kind of getting emotionally to attach to something just because, like, this is the way I've always done it and I have to keep doing it that way, like kind of being able to step back a little bit and kind of look at what's happening.
You and I talked about it yesterday, Turtles, a bit too, didn't we? About you and what you like and how things are going with you, and it's looking at it objectively, isn't it?
Well, you've also split yours.
Very hard to look at creativity objectively. It's easier to look at a business objectively, but it's that kind of not warring, but that kind of tension between the two. It's very hard. I don't think you can separate it either, which comes back to the why are you asking the question of what should I write next, doesn't it? Because if it's about for financial or business reasons, that's one thing. But if it's for serving you creatively, that could be a very different answer as well. So,
well, because that's the point of the confusion in my mind, right? So that when you're asking yourself, what shall I write next? And you can't decide, often I feel like it's a choice between something that's creative, like the thing that you're most drawn to, for example, versus something that you feel like might make you the most money. And maybe
feed both of those too.
And maybe that's a question. Maybe that's where when we're not really sure, we want both, right? We want to write the book of our heart and have this book be a bestseller, and that doesn't always happen. So I'm not sure.
And you've got to keep yourself fresh as well. Like, I mean, I write contemporary and I write historical. Contemporaries don't sell anywhere near historicals. If I was onto it, I would just be writing historicals. But that's not the way I want to be insofar as I need that change. I need to write these contemporaries as much as I do the historicals, because if I was just writing historicals, I don't know if they'd be as good.
Yeah.
You know, like
and I also think you can break that down into your series too, because once you start getting more than one series, there are other reasons why you would write this book instead of that book, because you know, like one series might have 3 books in it and another one might only have 1, but you're trying to get that one off the ground, so then that becomes more important. That becomes your why.
Or it could be like, so I remember, and it's not something that I've kind of personally experienced, but someone talking about always have one series ongoing when you end another series. Like she talked about how she'd had ended 2 series in a year, and then when she tried to start up a new series, it didn't take immediately. And so she lost the income because she had, you know, like, so there's that kind of thing that you have to take into account too. So
I think it's really vital for my series as I've introduced the next series in the last couple of books. And I think that's really, really important. Like I've just
slight crossover.
I've just sort of wrapped up one of my series. Don't say the readers that, but I've wrapped up one of my series, but I've introduced another one, and it's just a flow, because what I've done is I brought those characters across to the first book and the next series, and they're like, oh, well, I'm quite comfortable because they're still here. You know, like I think there's a little bit of forethought going into that as well, where you're going.
And the more you write, the more that happens, and very organically, because suddenly you're thinking of ideas to make that happen, aren't you?
And I feel like that's when you're doing that kind of thing, it's because you stop asking yourself, what am I going to write next? And you just know what you're going to write next. And I think there's a different mindset around both those things. And I think that's because, for example, Wendy, when she's doing it, she knows that for her, she's got to have some aspect of it be about creativity and about letting her writing muse flow. And she writes the contemporaries because she needs to, not because they make all the money. And she's worked that out, right? She's got, in a sense, she knows why she's writing what she's doing. And so I don't think, I mean, maybe you do, Wendy, but I feel like maybe you kind of always have a fairly good sense about what's coming next. You don't really sit down and go angst about, what am I going to write next? This is, you know, like, it's not a drama for you because you kind of understand that.
I've usually, even though I'm not a serial plotter or anyone that writes anything, in my head I've usually got, okay, this is coming off this. I mean, and also I talk to you guys, and Shah's been a massive influence in that too with me. Like it's important for me that the readers continue getting that continuity, but I also know that I can't keep a series going forever because I'm just not that way. I'm one of those writers who likes to carry all the characters through, and you just can't keep all those balls in the air. Some people don't, I do. And so by the end of that, I'm onto that. But I thought I'm also very mindful of the fact that you don't want to just write for the sake of writing. And I think that's important. You know, like for me, it's about, if I'm not in the mood to write, then I'll write something else. And quite often I do. Like I've got about 15 half books on my computer. And at the moment, I'm just looking at starting write a book with my son, you know, and I'm really excited about that because it's just another avenue of creativity. And we are creative people, right? We need that inspiration. I think the moment you get to that point where you sit down, you go, oh, you know, we all do it, but really badly, I'm blocked, I can't write, I don't want to write, then you got to shift, you got to move, you got to adjust, you got to find what suits you. And if you're not feeling that creative well and listening to that inner voice, I think it's going to come out in your writing, is where I'm going with all of that, you know.
And I'd also suggest that if you haven't, if you are looking at what, how, why, who is the next book on your agenda, this means to me anyway that you've finished something, you know, and you're looking to move on to the next thing, which is a great place to be, really. Although it might feel like a bit of pressure, or I don't know how it affects you personally, but it's actually a good thing.
Yeah. So be proud of yourself for what you've achieved.
So how do you guys come up with ideas? Do they just pop into your head, or do you go hunting for them, or do you use pictures, or what's I've never really asked you guys what your creative process is. When you start writing a book, how do you come up with something like that? What about you, Treadles?
Oh, I have loads of ideas already sitting there.
In your head.
Exactly.
And I'm trying, I mean, part of the reason I asked this question is because I am in the process of going to myself, what do I want to write next? And I am thinking of making a few changes in terms of the the way I write and what I'm going to be in, and leaning more into the romance than I have been, and things like that. And so, and for me, it's been a process of actually asking the question that Shah has asked, like, why are you even asking why don't you know what you're going to write next? And it's because I had gotten lost in the whole must write another book really fast, must put it up again, and there's a lot of there's scarcity thinking there. There's like, oh no, I'm going to miss out on something if I don't put a book up really fast, and it's gonna, if I don't get on this train and stay on it, there's something's gonna, like there's a panic. Can you feel it? Can you feel it when I talk about it? Oh my god. And
there's so many people that are not in agreement listening to that trip.
And should I jump on the next trend?
I mean, honestly,
like, how do I make this work? What am I doing? What am I doing wrong? There's that real sense of that.
I think that's a mindset you have to carve out.
You're
and that's not doing anything wrong. It's just a process. It's part of the apprenticeship to get to the right. You know what I mean? I think that's something that mentally, I think we as writers hit ourselves with.
And I think for me, what it has been this year has been a process of calming down and kind of going, actually, what do I want? What is my why? Which maybe we can talk about all of our whys maybe. And my why is not sitting at my desk for 10 hours a day, every day of the week, and not spending any time with my family, and not actually having a life, and putting on lots of weight and never exercising because I'm, like I sit at my desk and I'm, like, it's my why is being creative and writing the most amazing books I possibly can with the most amazing characters, and having them so compelling that my readers can't put them down. And to write that kind of book I can't do that in a month. I can't do that, and that's, I guess that's
an acceptance though, right?
And I actually personally believe, and who knows if this, check me out in 5 years' time, we'll see how it went for me. But I actually think I will make more money as an author by slowing down and not being this panicky, scared author trying to write fast and pump these books out.
But that's because that's what we see and that's what we hear.
And
that's a choice.
Self-publishing has been that for a long time. And
but
there are some people for whom people can write really fast. Like I know one of my favorite authors is Lindsay Baroka, and she was writing a book a month for a while there, and her books were really good and I enjoyed reading them. But I don't know,
that's not you.
It's not me. I just have to, and it's fine. Like I don't need to be the person pumping it. And in fact, that seems really stressful to me. When I think about it now, but
it's exhausting just thinking about it.
So, and that's okay. Like but I still feel that we've talked to enough people. We've talked to people who are making money without having to be a part of that really rush thing. So I think when I was thinking about what the next book is that I want to write, for me, a big part of it was, what do I want to write? What will inspire me? What will motivate me to keep writing? But also what will make money? So it's almost like a mix. Like I'm not going to write some random thing over here that's completely a mesh of 3 genres, and I'm not going to know how to market it. Like I do know enough about the marketing to kind of want to be able to make it tight in terms of that, but I also want to write something that I'm going to love writing and with characters that I'm going to really enjoy getting to know and those sorts of things. So it's a mix. I don't know. So that's
and you want to, and the thing is, following trends, people get it and they do it really well, and don't get me wrong, I think all power to them, but I think you want to put a book up that's going to be there and it's going to stay there and it's going to continue staying there and it's going to earn and it's going to have that long tail and it's going to,
absolutely.
I think betting in like that for a new author is better than chasing, but that's just me personally, and because I've never done that. I just wanted to make a general disclaimer, which is probably something that I should have said right at the start of this, that this is a judgment-free zone.
This
is just our thoughts.
And this is just us, and if you've listened to us, or if you've just started listening to us, we are absolutely not saying that there is anything wrong with writing to market, writing to trend, writing for purely money. And equally, there's nothing wrong with taking a more what's the word, considered and kind of reveling in the creativity sort of approach to it. All depends on exactly what on your why.
Totally.
So
and no judgments here.
And that's what because if you're writing fast, because you love
Go
to write
you.
fast and those characters are
Oh.
flowing through your head and
Yeah.
they just come out on the page and it is just working for you,
Yeah.
That's
then
all you need.
And that's how some
that's
writers
awesome.
work.
We're dead
You've
jealous
done
of you.
it.
Yeah, wish it was me.
And we've talked to those writers.
Yeah,
We've talked to
yeah.
ones
Oh,
that they'll spend
absolutely.
a month writing and maybe a month marketing. And and because they're writing so fast, they're in the story, they're not second guessing what's happening next. They don't have that kind of sluggish start to the writing day because they're so deep into the story. And we just are like, man, I want to be you when I grow
Full
up.
of admiration.
So no, there are, and again, anybody new listening to this, there is absolutely no correlation, I believe, between writing fast and quality of writing. You can use
Absolutely
an
not.
absolute dream
I write fast.
that
and,
takes
you know,
forever, and then there's others that are
Yeah.
written, you know.
Well,
so
that's my
it's
point
a
about Lindsay
fallacy.
Barocca. I love her books. I think she's awesome. I think she does a fantastic job, and I know for a fact that she takes about a month to write them.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
awesome. Like,
I mean, this book that's coming out on the weekend, it took me a month to write.
yeah.
And you know, from just around sort of 3.5 weeks, because I had to get it done quickly because stupidly didn't edit and then forgot about it. But anyway, on me. But what I'm saying is there's nothing wrong with the book and everyone's loving it. The art readers are. It's no different. It's
Well, a
just
lot of the
how
myths
hard it is on
around
you.
why things should take longer, you know, that kind of like seasoned
artist's
cheese or
myth.
whatever, the artist myth. A lot of it was to do with traditional publishing because the production lines were so long. It didn't necessarily reflect on how long it took to actually write the manuscript. So
I don't know if this is an urban myth or not, but I always was, you know, you hear about Ernest Hemingway, and he used to tell people that his books used to take him, you know, years to write. When I think they were only tiny. Like, is it A Farewell to Arms? Like, it's one of his books. Yeah, who knows? Actually, not a big Hemingway reader, to be fair, but you know, but then he would whip them out, and like, you know, he was a journalist. He did all this, you know, he could write really fast. He whipped them out in 3 weeks and tell people he took him a year to write, because that was the myth. That was what people expected. That's what people thought.
And how many of us, and I'll put my hand up here, spent 5, 10 plus years on their first book,
absolutely,
and it was rubbish.
Absolute rubbish. You know, never see the light of day, man.
Overthinking everything, and absolutely. You get
kind of wordy.
I've revisited a couple of my existing manuscripts to see if I could kind of do anything with them, and honestly, it meanders off. It's like by the end of it, it's a different book to what I started because of that. It took so long to get.
I remember Wendy and I, we were in a little tiny critique group, and we would every week rework basically the same chapters and present them to each other for them to read.
And then we'd be like,
and you felt obliged to critique, right? like because someone was presenting you the same week, you'd find something wrong with it.
Full of admiration for it, you know.
Anyway, so completely off topic now, I feel. But so can we talk about what's your why? Like it's kind of what we have been talking about, really, isn't it? It's like, so it could be just whatever. Like, it doesn't, and it's different for everyone. It's whatever motivates you. It's whatever gets you up in the morning. It's like, why are you doing this writing thing? Because honestly, there are better ways to earn money in this world, I believe.
Easier ways
absolutely,
than writing. And I feel like you have to have a pretty strong why, and it, then whatever it is, and it can be, you know, as Shah said, judgment-free zone. It can be whatever the hell you like. Like, don't feel like there's a right answer to what's your why. Like, and again, don't fall down those writer's traps. I think there's these myths around, I can't not write. It's my calling. And
if it's hard, then you're doing it wrong, or then you shouldn't be doing it. I don't like that one either.
But I will say, the longer I'm away from writing, the harder it is.
Just
to
like
get back into it. It's a muscle. It definitely is.
Oh
a
my
muscle.
gosh. You know.
And so much stuff in there that just needs to come out because there's only so much room.
So just don't fall into the traps of, like, really be honest with yourself. Like, really ask yourself, like, why am I doing this? What is, and then maybe use that to help you look at what you're going to write next. Like think about that. So some of the suggestions that I have here that maybe we could talk about, you guys can discuss, one was just to make money. Like, you're looking at this as a way to earn your living. It happens to be something you think that you're good at, and that you can, you know, write a good story and going to make money. You want to win an award, you want to be acclaimed, like have other people tell you you're awesome. To write a book of your heart, like that kind of passion project thing that you just want to get it out and get it written because it's been inside your head for so long, to write the best book you can, like to a craft related kind of motivation. I want to be getting better and writing and learning and doing that kind of stuff, or I just want to write really lots of books. I just want to write. I just want to get my words out there. So and those are all completely, like it's just some suggestions of things that you might want to think about. And your next book would be different based on each of those things, right? Like,
absolutely.
Like
so I'll use myself as an example here.
Yeah.
It's not about me, I know this podcast, but so I'm different in that the other three ladies are basically writing full time. I'm working pretty much full time, and so writing is on the side. So for me, anything I do in terms of fiction writing is purely for money. And so I will be looking at what's trending, what's selling, because there's only so many hours a week that I want to spend on it, and I don't want to I want to assign effectively an anticipated dollar value to those hours, because it's taking me away, because I'm a consultant and I earn by the hour what I charge out, that I have to take away from that what do you call it, bucket,
income
stream to apply to this one. And I find fiction writing incredibly difficult because I'm not exercised, but I have, I'm at a point in my life where I don't want to be doing something that I find incredibly difficult for, as Trudy said, 10 hours a day. So I do want, because I enjoy writing, I do want to do it, but it's not my be all and end all to be, I've got blogs, I've got nonfiction things that I would consider probably more of a passion project, and so I need to have some passion things and some income streams, and so for me it's a source of income. And in terms of how I would decide to write, then I would go back, and we interviewed Fallon Briggs 4 months ago, and I'll link to that in the show notes, and she talked about what changed for her from writing to market versus writing to trend, and kind of how she manages multiple pen names, and she was very she broke through by writing a very market focused genre, and that kind of thing really appeals to me, because I love the business of writing, I love the business of self-publishing, and I work in that, and so I feel like the tools I would use would be Kindle trends. I would be looking at K-lytics. And I do study the top selling charts. And ideally, if you're not necessarily writing to trend, but writing to market, there is a difference there. So for example, trend would be something back in the day, a couple of years ago, may have been reverse harem. And so if I was writing purely to trend, I would have written that. For me, it's not my jam, so I wouldn't be any good at that, but I'd look at something else, a subgenre that I could write, that I'm comfortable, that I know about, but that's also I know I can meet the reader expectations, which is writing to market, and that I enjoy reading, that I understand. And
another
so that's
good
how
example
I would
of
approach
that
it.
Was Ines Johnson, who was writing, and then she found, like, watched the lists, watched what was selling, and ended up with cowboy ranchers falling in love kind of thing. Like,
same
that
thing
was
with Alana Johnson, wasn't it? She looked at, she had retired veterans on a ranch kind of thing. I think that was her thing. And Cora Seaton with her mail order brides, or mail, again, so it's almost like a niche, and I think and so that's how I would approach it. And I see absolutely, like, again, judgment free zone, absolutely nothing wrong with that.
No, and there isn't 100%. So you've got to find your why. That's the whole point. Like, if it's the money that motivates you, then that's what you've got. And
there is a big difference, because it isn't my sole source of income, and I think having your writing as your main source of income, that applies a whole lot more pressure of, I think, around this question of what do I write next. That's a lot more pressurized, I think.
I think you can do a bit of research around it as well, like if your why is that you need to get some books out in a series or something like that, then you have to look around at what that would entail. How much time would you need to devote to that, to do like a quick or a rapid release of a series like perhaps 2 to 3 books at least. And, you know, the length of them, and could you write that genre? Is that a possibility for you? I think all
and
those
not
things.
just could you write it once, but could you keep on writing it?
Yes.
That's the other thing. I think most of us could write one thing. Like I could have written one reverse harem somehow, but would I want to keep writing
exactly.
it? No.
Yeah.
And actually reverse harem is really hard to write, like
really hard to write.
like it's not two couples, it's like multiple people that you've got to draw and
it's like relationships on steroids.
Well, I think any genre is a skill, and some of us are better at one than the other. That's just life.
So even I mean, I know this is probably we're not, but I think almost even so, if you're writing purely for money, you kind of have to you do need to think about what trend fits you as a writer.
Absolutely.
Like
because it's going to be easier. If it's something
like,
that resonates with you, it's going to be easier. And by easier, I don't necessarily mean the words come easier, but it's going to be easier to understand the reader expectations, which therefore makes the marketing easier. That's what I mean by easier. It's a more of a natural fit for you.
If it's going to be a chore, it's not really going to work. I don't think.
Well, how many of us, and we see it all the time with questions that we get on writers forums and things, people I've talked about this before, it's like the radio station isn't quite on the station. They're close, but they're not quite there. And I feel like sometimes when somebody's kind of forcing themselves, they're shoehorning their story into a particular trend, it's just not there, and they can't see why. And it's very difficult to see that yourself. And it's also very difficult to hear when you've put your blood, sweat and tears and something for people to say it's not to market when you've aimed at it to be at market. It's very hard to get that.
So know your genre.
Well, so try and understand your genre the best you can, I would say. You know?
I think, and that involves things like in some ways there's a lot of research that's involved in so if you want to write a book for money and you're going to write to market, you can't just decide that you're going to write reverse harem and not read a reverse harem.
No, and then think, well, I'm gonna throw those rules out. I'm gonna write a unique reverse harem where it's one guy and one girl. Like, you know, and that's similar to people that say they're going to write a romance and, you know, they're all going to die at the end. It's just like, we've seen it. We've all seen it. Somebody thinking that they're going to reinvent the genre and that readers don't really know what they want.
They do. They do.
I used to try and I would mentally smack those people down, and now I just laugh and move on because I've seen it so many times.
So what's your why then, Cher?
My why for writing my next book, I think I've kind of said it already. You know, it has to be fulfilling obligations that I have to my readers, and the fact that this series needs another book. I wrote that series last time, or that book did so well that they want another one. They're crying out for it. So, or you know, like if you've finished a series, which actually I haven't finished any series yet. It's just making that roll over into the fact that I'm keeping my readers enthused in a series by promising them another book, and I have to deliver.
But what if if you step back a bit and it's your why for writing? What's your why for writing?
Yes, my why for writing is because I really enjoy writing. I love it. It is my passion, and I can't think of doing anything else that I would love better. And I've done a lot of things, and I don't want to go out to work for somebody else. I want my own business. I want to be in control. So I have a few whys.
Yeah, and that's fine too, right?
Financial freedom, like I said.
So if we're talking about someone, so what I wanted to talk about was that idea of confusion. Like, you know, you want to make all the money, but you want to be true to your passion in writing. Do you have any kind of thoughts around that? Like, how do you make it clearer, or how do you? Anyone got? Shah?
So this is bastardizing an exercise that Patricia McClin did at a Romance Writers of New Zealand conference a few years ago now, and I'm not remembering it right, but it makes sense to me, so I'm going to go ahead and do it. So what she got us to do was to write down our top well, I can't remember how many, but I'm saying top 5 reasons why you write. So what Cheryl just said, you know, it's your passion, it's to give enjoyment to other people, you know, that kind of thing. So I want you to write down, and you can pause this podcast if you like.
No, never pause the podcast.
Write down your top 5 reasons why you write. And so we'd sit there and she gave us, you know, 5 minutes, and everybody's feeling fairly good. And it's, you know, okay, I've distilled it down. And she goes, and now I want you to take 2 of those reasons off. I want you to rank them. So I want you to sort out, not necessarily your top 3, but I want you to take off 2. If you could only write for those 3 reasons, what would it be? And so that was quite hard to take off 2. So you'd have to take off 2. Okay, so I'm left with these 3. And she goes, and now I want you to take 1 more off. And everybody's like, oh. And so you get down. And so we get to that point, there's a lot of groaning and moaning, and I'm thinking, please leave it here. And of course, you know, she didn't just leave it there. She's like, okay, you can only have 1 of those 2 that's left. What is it? And I would say the vast majority of people in that workshop room were surprised by what they actually ended up with. And for a lot of people, they thought they were writing for the love of it. But when it came down to a choice between, for example, earning from it or writing for the love of it, it often was the earning from it, or something else. It could have been just telling the story that was in their heart when they thought they were doing it purely for money. Like, there's, again, judgment-free zone here, but it was a really interesting exercise. And so I would encourage you to try that on yourself.
It will tell you a lot, actually.
It does tell you a lot, because I think we all have, I mean, a lot of us would have similar reasons if there's a group of them, you know what I mean? Like a lot of us would share those ones, but when you start filtering it down and really having to cut down to that top one, and that will dictate then a lot of the ways around that confusion. Because if I am writing for the love of it, then I'm not going to be stressing about what the trends are necessarily, you know, or vice versa. If I'm writing for the money, then I can't not be aware of what's going on, you know. So I share that with Grace, and I would listen to our podcast with Patricia McClin. It wasn't necessarily about this, but she's been around a long time in the writing community. She's an excellent educator. She's one of our romance leaders, as it were. And it was a really interesting, like, I mean, I cannot tell you how many writing workshops I've been to, and that one sticks out. And for a lot of people, a lot of my friends that were there with me, it's like, you know, a lot of them sort of fade off or merge, but that one, it was quite confronting. People found it hard.
And I think it's like taking away the confusion, right?
Yeah.
Like it's
also,
making it...
and the other thing was, she said, you don't share it with anybody. You don't share your reasons. And that takes away, because I think a lot of us too, you want to get respect for your reasons, or you want to get approval, you know. It's okay, you know. And I mean, there'll be I'm sure, for me, just saying purely of whatever I write, it's for money is my directing focus, there'll be a lot of people that would judge that.
Yes.
And so what she was doing is taking away that option for judgment. She didn't want, like, normally, you know, everybody share your 5, you know, and you're thinking, man, those are better than mine. Maybe I should write that one down. You keep it to yourself.
That's a really good point too, actually. That is really good. Aside from the fact that we've all just told.
I mean, we're all about we're all about sharing our stuff on here.
You can share yours with us. You can tell us.
That's fine, right. But we're not going to tell anybody else. No. And you're not obliged to tell anybody else. So it's completely okay to keep it to yourself.
And that does take the pressure off, I think, as well. So the one other thing that I wanted to mention quickly is, this is something my mentor is always saying to me, and it's where there's confusion, there's a lie. Right. So if you're confused about what to write next, and you're creating, you know, like, oh, should it be this or that, there's some kind of underlying story or lie that you're telling yourself about that. So for example, if you're saying, should I write to trend, or should I write this book that's been secretly percolating in the back of my head and I think they'll be really good? Like, I don't know which one to write. And maybe you're thinking that, okay, so one for me, often the lie is that there's a right answer, that if I choose to write to market, and it's that it might be the wrong decision, and I will bomb and fail, and that's it, and that's the end of me as a writer, and my career is over. Because I had this big thing about right and wrong, like I had to find the right way to do things and I couldn't do it the wrong way. And that you have to pull back from that, or I've had to pull back from that and just go, okay, it's just a decision. You just make a decision, and you'd say you decide to write the book of your heart, and you put it up and it doesn't go as well as you hoped it would go, then you go, okay, so I know that mixed genre of horror and something that doesn't mix with horror, I don't know, mermaid horror was not the right.
Kidding? That sounds awesome.
It does, actually. But anyway, a mermaid horror musical that I thought would be awesome wasn't, then that's okay. And you learn from it and you move on to the next thing. Like there's no kind of judgment, there's no kind of, oh my god, I did the wrong thing, what an idiot, I shouldn't have done that. You just go, no, I made a decision, I went with it, and now I've learned from it and I can make the next decision. Or as you are writing it, you could be course correcting, or as you're doing things. So it's just taking away that pressure. But there could be all sorts of lies, there could be just things that you're telling yourself, like to be a proper writer you have to write a certain way, or you know, I won't be successful until I'm earning $1 million a year. Or the only way to be successful as an author is to get a book pub, or whatever, whatever it is. I mean, there could be all sorts of stories that you're telling yourself, and that's why you're, I
can't write a romance because people will put me in the category of Mills and Boon.
I can't do that. That's a big one for romance writers.
I don't want I don't want my friends laughing at me, or my family laughing at me, or if I'm writing something sexy, them being horrified.
No,
I mean, I think it's massive to take ownership of what you just eventually decide to do, because if you don't, then if you don't believe in it, no one else is going to. And I think that if you make a decision, you've got to stick with it 100% and own it and go for it.
But equally, you don't need to tell. Again, it's okay to keep your cards close to your chest too, kind of thing.
Yes and no. I agree with you 100%, but you're going to put that book out into the world, right?
You have to be proud of it. How
are you going to hide it from the world? And
I know you hide it. I mean, your reasons for writing that book is what I mean. You don't necessarily have to share those.
No, but when you're talking about actually the book itself, like you've got to love that book for yourself.
Well,
if you play at it and you want it to be serious, that's not ever going to happen. You've got to 100% commit to it.
Yes.
And I think that's a lot of writers, they do hide it, and they do, I don't want it, and and this and that. Until you take ownership of it,
it's scary.
It's not going to happen.
Publishing anything is an incredibly courageous act. No matter how confident you feel in it, you're putting something up there that's still, even if it's written purely to trend, whatever, it's still a part of you, of your creativity, that's out there exposed to the world. It's like a little raw nerve that people, it's incredibly courageous act. So anybody doing that, go you.
Power to you. And I tell you what, it's way easier if you're really proud of your book than if you're worried that it's not that good. So I think that's a big thing, and
it's okay to be proud of it and love it when you've written it and when you put it up, but then when you put it up, that's a commodity, and then you move on to the next. And that's something I had to really learn. If someone didn't like my book, I'm like, what is your issue? Seriously. It's the best book ever written, like, I mean,
there is a period where you hate your book.
I don't remember this.
I don't remember this, Wendy.
No, once it's up there, I love it, man. It's the best thing ever written. But no, what I'm trying to say is,
but before it's up there, it's like nobody's gonna love it. Nobody's gonna love it.
I just finished one and I said to my daughter, pile of crap, seriously. Just like, I think this is the one they're all going to hate, and she just like, okay. Just go back into bed and curl up in a ball, Anyway, so
is there anything else anyone wants to add around?
I think
we've hammered that out. I
just do want to add one more thing, and it's something that you girls have talked about, and it's trusting your gut and intuition. And I think particularly as women that we've got to really powerful kind of force within us, and I'm getting a little woo-woo here, but really take time to listen to that. Go for a walk, do some journaling, because you have the answers within you, and I think a lot of us look to other people to tell us what we should be doing.
And also if you're going to look to other people, look to people that you respect and who get you.
And who have your best interests at heart.
Absolutely. We're very lucky we've got that in each other.
Yeah.
I really like that the exercise that we did with Linda Pucci, can't remember how to pronounce her name, but the amazing. That was amazing. So I would go back
listen to that
and listen to that one.
It was a psychotherapy with the sparkles.
I got so much out of that, actually.
We have it all.
Go back and listen to the podcast.
You do, and that's one to listen to when you're sitting at home, lying on your bed or whatever, because she takes us through a guided meditation on that one. And seriously, we all came away after it. Yeah, look, it was amazing.
Everything that I don't like in life.
Yeah,
but
it's good to be pushed out of your comfort zone sometimes.
So that's awesome. And I think you're absolutely right, Sha. I think we do know what we need to do inside ourselves, and we just have to trust ourselves.
Trust your gut.
And that's so hard, trusting ourselves, right?
Cool.
Easier as you get older. That's the thing with age. Care less about what other people say and think.
Awesome. All right, so that is another episode, I believe, of the Spa Girls podcast. Thank you all for listening to us and putting up with our nonsense for another week.
6 years. Can I just say 6 years?
6 years in October.
Wow.
Sorry. sorry
outside. Sorry, not sorry. So we've got some exciting podcasts coming up before Christmas.
We've got some super exciting ones coming up. We've got some amazing guests, but we've also got ourselves, which is also pretty exciting.
Which is super exciting.
So come along to spargirlspodcast.com. Check us out. If you're on YouTube, please, what would really appreciate is if you give our videos a like, because YouTube likes the likes, and that just helps more people find us.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, thank you for listening to another episode of the Spa Girls podcast. We'll be back again next week, but for now, farewell.
Bye.